Ahoy there makers, let's take a closer look at the new Yukon. This is the brand new board from Pimoroni and it's an absolute stonker. The Yukon is a standalone controller that can be equipped with up to 6 interchangeable modules capable of driving really high powered hardware. And this is made possible by the capabilities of the Raspberry Pi's multi-talented RP2040 chip. This flexibility means that you can drive many unique combinations of motors, servos, steppers, speakers, LED strips and more using a single Yukon host. To ensure your Yukon creations are adventure proof, each module is screwed down to ensure a solid mechanical and electrical connection. So assembling your Yukon, this is the best bit. Big electronic projects can involve a lot of soldering, splicing and other complicated assembly techniques, but not with Yukon. The host board and modules use a solderless connections wherever possible, and it's fast and friction free to get started, and it's simple to swap out components if you want to. So the Yukon is all about Pi power. So supplying external power to your Yukon is easy thanks to the chunky XT30 connector. You'll see this kind of connector on things like drones as well. So this enables you to attach the 2 or 4 cell LiPo batteries or from any other source of 5 volts to up to 17 volts, which is cool, to deliver up to 15 amps continuously for your high power projects. An eFuse with a switchable output is included as well, and this is there to protect your projects from over voltage and over current events, alongside an internal sensor for monitoring voltage, current and temperature whilst your programs run. So programming your Yukon couldn't be easier. Your Yukon is supported by a comprehensive MicroPython library with a whopping 50 examples showing you how to use individual features of the board and all of its modules. There are also some fully fledged showcase examples to show you how Yukon can be used to build remote control rovers, spiders, tanks, pen plotters and so much more. So let's have a look at some of the features of the Yukon. So it's powered by the RP2040, which is a dual ARM Cortex M0 Plus running up to 133 MHz and has 264K of SRAM on board. The Yukon has an additional 16 megs of memory, which means we can store a lot more things on there, and things like sound files as well. It has 6 slots for these high-powered modules, an eFuse for switchable output, so 40 amps current and 18 volts over voltage protection. It has an XT30 connector, which is for voltage and logic power from 5 volts to 17 volts and 15 amps continuous. It has a USB-C for programming and logic power. It has an on-off button as well, an essential. It has 3 user buttons on board. One can also act as a boot selector for entering the DFU mode. It has 2 power and 2 user LEDs, so you can see which are being used, and it has 2 Quest connectors as well, so these are the quick stemmer QT connectors that we all love. It has an internal voltage in, voltage out, current and temperature sensors as well, and it has an unpopulated header for Breakout Garden, so you can plug in all the Breakout Garden modules as well. It has an unpopulated expansion header for wiring up external buttons and extra I/O. Comes fully assembled, there is no soldering required unless you want to use one of the Breakout Garden or expansion headers. It uses M2 screws for attaching the modules. It has some rubber feet and has MicroPython firmware and library included as well. And the Yukon modules are also sold separately in these really cool packs. Gotta catch them all. So what's in the box? Actually, let's take a look, shall we? So I have the Make Anything kit here. You can see it comes in this great project box, which you can also reuse to be a container for other things as well. Here's the Yukon host. So it comes with a little bag of brass screws and also some little rubber feet. Little rubber feet go on these really cute little feet areas there. So you can see here's the Yukon. It has 6 module areas, so we can simply just plop our modules onto those. And in this Anything kit, we also get a whole bunch of extra modules as well. So there we have an LED strip, we have the quad servo regulated, this is one of the custom proto ones, we have the audio amp of the dual motor bipolar stepper, and we also have the dual switched output as well. So let's plug these in. So the way that we get these connected up, just a tiny little sticker we just need to remove from each of these the very first time we get this. This is just part of the manufacturing process to protect heat from going in there. And then we have these little pins there that connect into the sockets on the board. So they simply just click into place. You can see there we can screw these screws in to hold that module securely in place like so. Now we can plug in as many of these or as little of these as we want to, depending on what our specific project is. We don't have to use all of them. And we can also buy extra ones. So we could have 2 LED strips if we wanted to, and say 4 motors, for example. There we go. So that's how we assemble it. You can see there we've got this XT30 power connector. Now it does actually come in the pack with a couple of connectors as well. So there's a USB-C cable there, and there's a couple of these connector wires as well, so we can plug them into our bench power supply. If I plug that one in there, you can see we've got some nice silicon rubber wires there as well. There's also a connector there for an XT60 as well. It sort of steps it up to the larger batteries. And now you can also buy these individual packets as well. This is like a big encoder one here, for example. If I open up this, we get the module in a bag as well. So if we wanted to, for example, we could have 2 of these on the board. So move that one there, for example, and put this one in its place. There we go. There we go. We can also see the Quest connectors there. So it has 2 Stemma QT connectors. It has the unpopulated Breakout Garden connector there. We can see the user buttons as well. We have AB, power and user boot. They can be used in any of your projects. We've also got some other expansion and control headers here and there as well as the USB-C connector for programming it. And that's what the back of the board looks like as well. So just to quickly run over that again, so we have the Yukon host plus the feet and the screws. We've got the dual motor, bipolar stepper motor module and the proto module, which is the custom one. We've got the quad servo regulated, the LED strip module and the audio amp module. We have a dual switch power output module, USB-A to USB-C for programming. We have a loose wire for XT30 cable for power, with the XT60 to XT30 cable for power, and it's packed neatly up in a reusable pirate loot box as well. So the pins and DIMMs. On the website you can actually grab this image, print it out as well for your Yukon, and it shows you all the different pinouts that are on each of the module headers and all the different other connectors on the board as well. So it's a nice size of board, it's not too large. You can just see there in my hand what the size of this is like, so it's perfect for putting inside any of your custom projects. So let's have a look at some of these modules, shall we? So we have the audio amp mono, which is a speaker connector. So it has an amplifier built into the module, so you can get really, really loud audio from this. We have a bench power supply step down DAC. We have a big motor plus encoder, which is perfect for robots when you want to know precisely how many times your wheels have turned round. We have the dual motor bipolar step. We have the dual switch power output, the custom proto board as well for making your own project modules. We have the LED strip, which is one of my favorites, the quad servo direct, the quad servo regulated. We can set what voltage the servos receive, and there's a little area on the board there where you can actually write that on in a Sharpie or something like that. There's the serial bus servo as well. So let's have a look at these in a bit more detail. So the first one, the audio amp module. I really like this module because it means you can bring sound, speech and all kinds of things to your projects. You can drive one speaker 4 ohms or above. It has the mono class D amplifier using the TAS2780 chip. It's configurable by software I2C and its max power is 25 watts. So that's plenty of volume. If you know about wattages and speakers, it's plenty loud. It also has a temperature sensor on board just to make sure that the module isn't overheating. Next up we have the bench power module. This is a really cool one. This means you can build your own bench power supply simply using the Yukon and this module. So you can see there we have 5 amps of continuous 10 amps peak. It's adjustable between 3 and 12 volts output. There is exposed digital I/O for feedback, and it has the voltage and temperature sensors as well. Next we have the big motor plus encoder. So this can drive one brush DC motor plus an encoder, and it can drive up to 8 amps continuous with 12 amps peak, which is plenty of power for a big chunky motor. This also has a current and temperature sensor on board too. Next, we've got the dual motor bipolar step. I've used this one in one of my projects quite recently. I'll put a link on the end of the video if you want to watch that one, where I essentially upgrade an Omnibot to use the Yukon. So this can drive 2 brush DC or 1 bipolar stepper motor. It has an adjustable current limit between 0.16 and 2.24 amps, which is good if you want to make sure it doesn't take too much power, and it also has a temperature sensor on board as well. Next we have the dual switch output. This can drive 2 high power outputs. It has a flyback diodes for inductive loads, and again has a temperature sensor built on board as well. Next we have the proto module. So this can be used to make your own projects. All the slot I/O and power exposed. It has 0.1 inch spacing between the pads and has a 6x4 proto area. The board has a little area as well where you can write on what the name of your project is or what it does, for example. Next we have the LED strip module, one of my favourite ones. We can drive 2 WS2812 or 1 AP102, which is the dot star type. The WS2812 is also known as neopixel strips. So this has a fixed 5 volt output, and it has a 5 amp continuous or a 10 amp peak output. It has a 5 volt level shifted clock and data, and it also has the temperature sensor in there as well. Next we have the Quad Servo Direct. This one can control up to 4 RC servo motors with direct high power voltage output, and it has 2 analog inputs for sensors as well. Next we have the quad servo regulated. So this is similar to the previous one, but it can selectable between 5, 6 or 7.4 volts output. Has a 5 amp continuous and 10 amp peak, and the board area for writing your voltage on there, which one you've selected of the three there. Also has a temperature sensor built in as well. And we have finally the serial bus servo. This one can control UART serial servos, has a 5 volt level shifted transmit and receive, and switches for half duplex operation. It has 2 3-pin Molex connectors and 1 3/4 pin for other connectors as well. So connecting breakouts couldn't be easier. So it comes with a Quest connector, which is the quick stemmer QT type connectors on your Yukon, and this makes it super easy to connect to other projects. If your breakout has a Quest connector on board, you can simply plug it straight in using the JST-SH to JST-SH cable, and there's a list of all the different breakouts that are currently compatible on our MicroPython build on the website. So the Raspberry Pi RP2040 microcontroller is a dual-ARM Cortex M0 Plus running at 133 MHz. It bundles 264K of SRAM, 30 multifunction GPIO pins, including 4 channels of 12-bit ADC. A heap of standard peripherals, so all the I2C, SPI, UART, PWM, clocks, etc., as well as USB support. And one really exciting feature about the RP2040 is programmable I/O. So this is used behind the scenes in the Yukon to do some really clever things, such as the LED strips. So some extras you might want to buy along with your Yukon. So the 6 amp 60 watt AC battery charger. You can also get a LiPo battery in a few different sizes as well, depending on what your project needs are. There's a LiPo safety sack, which is fireproof, just in case anything happens. So when you charge these batteries, make sure when you move them around that they're safely protected, and this will help you do that. There's a 7.4 volt Metal Gear serial servo, and there's also a 7.4 volt or 180 degree Metal Gear servo as well. Some other extras you might want to consider. We have some XT30 adapter cables, which are XT30s with leads. There's an XT30 connector female as well as the XT30 male adapter. We have a couple of sizes of silicon wire. So this is either 0.8mm or 1.6mm. We also have the inline splicing connectors from Wago available as well. Okay, demo time. So this is a plotter that the Pimoroni team created, and you can see here it's got a pen and it's going to draw out the Yukon logo. And this uses a couple of modules. We'll go through those in a second. So the plotter used 4 dual motor bipolar step modules and 2 quad servo direct modules as well. One of my favourite projects that Chris created was this robot spider. You can see there it has 6 limbs and each limb has a number of servos on it. I think there's 3 servos per limb. So the spider robot used 2 serial bus servos and 1 custom proto module for the buzzer. And here is another project that the Pimoroni team created. It's a Rover robot. So as well as some motors, you can see it has some LED strip on the side too. The Rover robot used 2 big motor plus encoder modules, 1 LED strip and 1 custom proto for the buzzer and Bluetooth. If you want a deep dive on how to use the Yukon on an actual project, I created this video over on my own channel where I take a Omnibot and put a Yukon inside it. So I hope you enjoyed this short video, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now.